Hey guys, all my followers on YouTube. It's been a long time no see. Haven't posted a video in a while, but thought I'd show you what I'm up to today. Well, not today, but now, this period of time. I flipped my truck just before going to France. I came back after flipping my truck and digging into all the projects that I got here. One of them was the truck. A whole bunch of things happened. Well, one landed on the door, so that sucks, and the fender messed up. Luckily, my cap that I built that was sticking over the side, it took the impact and put it, most of it I think, right there. So some of the damage here was from previous owner, but definitely that wasn't there before, and that wasn't as dented as it is now, and that all came from flipping on its side. As you can see, the steps gone, window, mirror, doors got a giant hole in it. I started playing around trying to figure out, I made a list of things I needed, and then I was able to come back, and one of the problems was that is the refill cap, the cap for the transmission fluid, and that leaked all over the air filter. And, well, everywhere. You can even see that it's still wet even near a year after it happening. Didn't think about the fact that was covered in oil, and that's why the engine couldn't breathe. The gas filter was old, needed replacing, and the fact that when I flipped, all the dirt from the inside of the tank just went into the lines and probably the injectors, and so every time I tried to start it, that was screwing things up. So I replaced that, put a new one in, and when I finally got it running, a little bit, it squirted all over the engine. It was covered in gas. That was scary because I could have lost the whole engine. But I put it back in nice, and hopefully the threads seem to be loose, and that I think might have been also the problem, that it kind of popped up one side and started leaking out. Anyways, I took it off and made sure it went on decently right, and also these batteries weren't screwed in, so one of these batteries, not this one, the other one, went through the fan and got caught in the fan. You can see it's pretty chopped up. Fan's all chunky, and this thing broke off because when it flipped over inside, battery knocked that over. And luckily this isn't leaking, but I'm gonna have to glue some kind of a thing to it. This thing alone's $100, which is stupid because, I mean, there's no leak in it, but I just need to figure out a way to screw it on nice and tight away from the fan. And as long as I do something strong enough, it's not gonna matter. As long as it's doing its function, it's not getting in the way of the motor. And yeah, so that battery's garbage. Luckily I only need one battery, so I bought one new one to try and start it. And because diesels need two. It's a 7.3 liter. Cleaned up the air filter, but I actually was running it without the air filter so that I could, figure out what was going wrong. Ends up, when I had it running, no oil. That's why it kept shutting off, because the sensor kept freaking out, and there's no oil in the engine. So hopefully there isn't a severe oil leak. I'm going to play around with it and drive it around on the farm, see what happens. And yeah, luckily it runs just as, once I finally fiddled with it and got it going, I started taking off the gas tank, actually, thinking that there was some filters in there that I'd have to replace, but I'm not even going to try now. I'm going to put the screws back in, because I stripped two of the screws trying to get them out, and I was like, well, now it's running just like it did before, so why bother? So I'll probably put those back in, and but otherwise, and then I was afraid there was a gas leak, but it was actually just the filter popped up when it shouldn't have. But yeah, so far it's running great. A bit hotter than normal because of the fact that, well, I also found out there was a leak in that thing, in the radiator. But then I left it for a while, ran it a couple times, and now it doesn't seem to be leaking, so I mean, it's not a big deal as long as you pay attention to the coolant. Make sure it doesn't start leaking again. But yeah, this thing took a beating, and the fact that I could get it up and running, and I was like taking it down the dirt roads and jumping it around, and that actually might have been why the fuel filter popped out a little bit. But yeah, I mean, and the more I've been running it, the more it just starts up on a dime nearly now. So finally again, and it'll probably start even better with 2 batteries, but I only got the 1, but it's good enough for now. Brakes, I redid most of the brakes on it before I flipped it, and it didn't leak at all, so it's perfect. But yeah, that's what I've been working on. I'm super happy to get it up and running. Cleaned it out off to make it look nice. Obviously, get a new door mirror or window and mirror. Liking it so far, and the bed's still on there nice and strong, even though it's all dented up. But I mean, it's a work truck, you can handle it. And yeah, I'm also working on the trailer, trying to get that in a livable state at some point, and then I can pull it around with the truck and live in that thing. It'd be great. But yeah, I'm probably gonna replace the radiator, and well, definitely the radiator fan or whatever. Definitely that guy down in there, which is fairly easy. Looked up some videos on it, and it's like literally you just screw it off and screw it back on, so should be fine. I could probably do it without removing the radiator, but to be honest, I kind of want to replace the radiator anyways, seeing as it had a leak and probably have a leak again. I don't want it to happen on a road trip or something. Not that that's a big deal. Just buy a new one, pop it out, pop a new one in, fill it up. But yeah, if you want to see some pictures, I'll show you some pictures of me working on the truck, the brakes. Man, it was fun, and I did it right in the parking lot of Parts Source. So if I need, once I was like taking it apart, and I was like, oh, I need a tool. Just go rent it, come out, fix it, take it back in. It's great. And if I needed any parts, I'm like, hey, shoot, I need this part because I broke this off and whatever. And they're like, all right, here you go. And of course, if they're like, won't have that in for a day or two, I'd probably have to put it back together. But so far I haven't run into that. I usually ask them beforehand, do you guys have these parts that I may break? And then they're like, yeah. And then I'm like, okay, cool. And then I start the project in the parking lot. It's pretty funny. But I love it. It's great. My car's running fine. Don't have to do anything to these things, Toyota Camrys. I don't drive it for a year, and then I'm like, shoot, I'm gonna drive it full time, and poof, just jumps right back on the road like it was nothing. Yeah, I love this thing. And the truck, man, don't have to worry about vehicles, which is nice. I mean, yeah, there are problems with the truck, but wouldn't have had those problems for ever if I didn't flip it. But just the fact that everything's running makes me happy.